Welcome back, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Mirage 2000C-S4, and there is really only one difference between this one and the CS5. The CS5 has almost double the countermeasures, and this is pretty big. However, Chaff got nerfed again, so Chaff isn't as useful as it was. It's still very good, I still like to run it, but when you only have 54 countermeasures, I am not gonna be using it. It only drops one countermeasure at a time, so you will have 54 actual flare drops that you can use sparingly. Now you are at 11.7, so you won't be seeing 12.3 lobbies every match. You will be up tiered very often, basically every game. However, because of the way the matchmaker works, you are not gonna be seeing 16 of the 12.3 planes. Keep in mind that when they do inevitably, or perhaps hopefully, increase the BR ranges, 12.7 is still within your reach. And let me tell you, fighting top tiers in this thing isn't that fantastic. The plane in itself is pretty good, it's pretty decent. However, due to the matchmaker, that's just how it goes in jets these days. If you get up tiered, you are basically boned, so you kind of want to fly planes that can't be up tiered. For the loadout, there's really not much to choose from here. We have the Magic 2 and the 530. The 530D is okay, but it's nothing to write home about, especially together with the radar set, but we will get into that in a minute here. So you can't really choose anything other than the Magic 1 and the Magic 2. And if you take the 1 over the 2, there's probably something wrong with your head or you can't read. Over here, also not much to choose from. The D is simply superior. Despite the F being a higher letter in the alphabet, the D is simply a better missile. Now, the loadout options for bombs, I mean, they're okay. They're all dumb guided. And then you have the same missiles again that you have on the other side of the plane. So there's really not much to review in that regard. I run 20 minutes without the fuel tank simply to give myself a little bit of a leg up when it comes to the performance, because that's the real driving factor of this plane, and you don't have the most amount of missiles, the most amount of countermeasures, so your staying power or your endurance isn't that high anyway, so lowering it a little bit with less fuel really isn't gonna hinder you too much, because most of the time you have to RTB before running out of fuel anyway, so it really doesn't impact your gameplay all that much. Now for the answer or the question, should you keep or sell this thing? It depends a little bit on what you want. If you want a high tier grinder for France, or maybe the only plane that you want is this thing, it will then be able to circumvent the absolute stinker that is the high tier grind of the French tech tree. So in that regard, this plane is quite good. The performance is also good. I'm not sure how it will handle the power creep, because well, the flight performance will always be at least somewhat decent as long as they don't up tier it. And if you are banking on the fact that they are gonna decompress the BRs, this thing will be at 11.7. So even if they ever add 12.7, it is still gonna be seeing them. So don't bet on it too much. Is it a hard sell? Not really. If you already have the French tech tree, if you already have the 5F or the CS5, just sell it. Just get some money out of it. It's the exact same thing. It however just has less flares. Now you might in the future find that this thing will get down tiered because it's an event plane. And let me tell you, event planes are not doing that hot most of the time, but you also shouldn't bet on it, because when you look at something like the MiG-23 MF for the German tech tree, it also didn't go lower in BR, so it might not happen at all. But you know, it doesn't really matter. If the longer you keep it, most of the time the more that it becomes worth, unless they completely nerf it or add something that's already in the tech tree. However, the plane that they can add in the tech tree is already there, so you don't really have to worry about a massive drop in price. At least I think so. Don't bet on me too much, because I also said a while ago that the BI-1 was not really worth your time, and look at us here, one of the most overpowered planes in the game for like 400 USD. So don't take my broker's advice too much, because I might just end up being wrong altogether. And before I start covering the gameplay, I feel like absolute shit. I contracted the funny virus for the 5th time, and I'm not gonna be playing as clear or as like aware as I would normally. I am just having a massive case of skill issue today. So if the way I explain things are a little bit worse than you would find normally, well, that is why. As the F-14s are ejaculating their phoenixes all over the map, I am gonna be using the terrain a little bit. Now there's one thing about F-14s and the phoenixes, they actually have such a large warhead that often they will splash you on the ground. So you need to make sure that you actually dodge them properly without just skimming the ground, because if they skim the ground just in front of you, they are gonna hit just in front of you and they are still gonna splash you out of the air. Now normally I wouldn't really include these clips, but I know with event vehicles that there is gonna be a lot of new players, so I want to warn you beforehand. Phoenixes are pretty easy to deal with. but you don't want to just give them a free kill basically. So we come out of the flank, we dodge the phoenixes, and then we go back to the deck after getting a little bit of altitude, because I thought to myself I want to sling a radar missile at the F-14 in orbit. We don't get the ability to, and we kind of just transition back towards the middle of the map. This guy isn't flying super high, so I'm just gonna bet on the fact that he's gonna stay a little bit higher. He dodged the missile by going low. If you see people skimming the deck like that, don't even bother about shooting the 530 at him. Instead, shoot him at someone like this F-14 with a very fitting name. The thing tracks, it hits him, but unfortunately a teammate instantly collects the kill, because well, when your missile doesn't kill in top tier, it's most of the time going to get yoinked. We then have to 2v1 a two-man squad of F-15s, and well, there is a reason you're not seeing the rest of that game. I just got my ass clapped and there's really nothing to show you there. And then on to the next game, we see this JA-37 being a little bit higher than usual, and just as I just said, if they aren't within like 10 meters of the ground, you can just sling these missiles at them. However, the 530Ds are not foolproof. They are not the best radar missiles, and they definitely are a bit of a gimmick, and if I could run 4 Magic 2s, I would. Or perhaps 3. The 530D takes a little bit to wake up. After you lock someone, it takes a little bit before the lock actually goes red and goes solid. Then after launching, it takes a little bit before it starts pulling. It's also not particularly fast. It takes quite a while to get up to speed, and overall it's just kind of a mediocre missile. The Magic 2s on the other hand are pretty great. They have IRCCM now, which means infrared countermeasures, I think it is anyway. And the main thing they really lack is gonna be the range. The acceleration is fantastic and they are hella fast. However, once that motor burns out, they lose their speed quite rapidly. So if your enemy isn't flying straight like this FRS, and let me tell you, you are gonna be seeing a lot of FRSs, the missile doesn't have the best range. It's mostly good at like R60 range. Within 2 kilometers they will hit very often, but if they are aware of you and going super fast straight from behind, they will be able to just run the missile out of energy. But at the end of the day, this plane is all about the flight performance. So we are gonna just kind of showcase that real quick. Now, as you can see, the speed bleed is quite excessive, but when you have someone on your 6 with 6 of your teammates next to you, you can just kind of pull him up, and then you want to make sure that you get back down to the deck as quickly as you can. We then re-engage the guys in front of us. F-104 comes head on. I'm not going to be taking that massive disadvantage because I only have the DEFAs. And I just don't really have an ability to shoot at anyone. They all fly past me, and then I get team kill. Thank you very much. We are then back at the flank of a southern city, and this is one of my favorite maps in the game, and it also lends itself quite well to a plane like this, because you can actually break line of sight, play it as a bit of an ambush fighter, and pop up over hills where people don't expect you from. We have an F4S on the horizon, so I switch on to my normal radar, we lock him up, and he is simply too high to really do anything about it. It's a medium to good range, it's still burning. That is almost always a secure kill. The thing I do with my radar, you can see it over here, I turn it on ACM mode, and then I turn it off. This way I don't give anyone an RWR warning. And secondly, if I now press the lock button, which is on my mouse actually, it instantly turns on the ACM mode. Now if you have enough mouse buttons to finick around with, be my guest. I just like this way. I only have one button for my radar on my mouse, and if I turn my ACM mode on and then turn the radar off with the lock button, I can just very easily turn it back on by pressing the lock button again. Now it's a little bit finicky when you do have to go into BVR, as you saw with that FRS, but overall I think this is very helpful because the ACM on this plane is pretty damn good. Why is that, you might ask? Because it actually locks the stuff you're looking at. Look at this radar, it's absolutely appalling in terms of target acquisition. I absolutely hate it. It's locking everything except the thing that I want to lock. But ACM is overall a lot more convenient in most cases, because the range of it is actually 19 kilometers. But that right there is gonna cost me a kill, and it's gonna put me in a bit of a bad spot. J8F shoots a missile at me, that's gonna be a PL8 or Python 3 equivalent. And I want to make sure I flare it properly. We go on over the hill, we go back into being unspotted, and we are gonna loop around and re-engage them relatively quickly here. We then have a MiG-23 as well as another guy next to him. I couldn't read it and I forgot. I'm completely sorry, but there's 2 players in the middle of the map here, and I'm thinking about cutting them off and getting behind them. However, one of them actually managed to know that I was there, and he turned after me. Now I need to go defensive against him. I want to be careful that he doesn't sneak up on us. but he doesn't really engage us at all, so I'm just simply gonna turn back in and see if I can maybe engage him. Now I know that there is another player over here somewhere, I don't know where he is exactly, but I do want to keep it in the back of my mind. SU-39 comes in and I know that this guy has R73, so I want to be careful because he just came in. He probably still has all of his missiles and I'm not gonna feel an R73 shoved in my cockpit from point blank range. So for now I want to engage the MiG-23 in front of us. I'm kind of just hoping to make him turn around for us. He's not really having any of it, and the MiG-23 as well as the SU-39 are now coming after me. And I know that SU-39 still has a lot of missiles left, and I'm not about to find out just how many those are. Well, there comes a missile, and I think those are Vickers. I'm not sure what he's trying to do here, but I just want to dogfight this MiG-23 by pulling him away a little bit and mopping him up relatively quickly and then engaging the Su-39. However, the MiG-23 already got bored of me and he simply flew away, so now I need to loop back around and re-engage the furball in the middle. We have an F4J coming in. The MiG-23 and the Su-39 are directly next to each other. And at this point I think to myself, I'm gonna missile the Su-39 in the head-on with the 530D and then mop up the MiG-23 afterwards. However, the MiG-23 actually comes back in for the head-on, so we lock him up, and you can tell if you shoot this thing at any closer of a range than that and they are maneuvering at all, that missile is gonna miss. However, that is a MiG-23 ML, which means that he is not gonna even bother trying to dodge the missile and he's gonna end up just directly headbutting it. Then we meet whatever this specimen was doing. He just kind of flew behind us, or in front of us, just flew straight, didn't react at all. And he instantly pays the price, and then the last guy in the enemy team shows up. It's the MiG-29, and I'm not sure which version this is. I kind of hope it's an SMT, but at the same time, the other one is perhaps a little bit more fun to fight. So it's a regular one, it's not the SMT, so this one is gonna have the better flight model. So at least it's actually gonna be somewhat of a fight. With the SMT he would have been dead already right here. And because I'm trying to conserve fuel and I thought that this guy was also trying to slow down, I just run out of energy completely. So I just whip back up, we dive away, and we are gonna try to get our speed up a little bit. I at least want to get to around Mach 0.9, and that's roughly my ideal merge speed. So I don't really have to get over that. I just want to get away from him for a little bit, and then we are gonna transition into going defensive and perhaps reversing him. Now I want him to go a little bit faster first. I don't want to reverse someone that's already slower than me. So I'm just gonna make sure that this missile actually hits the ground, and it does because we are low enough and it's a cold aspect. And once I reach that 0.8-ish, I'm just gonna kind of pull in. I'm trying to next him, trying to pick up a little bit of speed in this sideways merge. And because I'm now a little bit slower, I can actually throttle drop a little bit more, get behind him instantly. And because he just took off and we are a little bit lighter, we are able to instantly... Because we just took off and we are a little bit lighter, we are able to instantly get an angle on him and just very easily shoot him down. And now directly on top of him, I lead the missile. Down he goes, and that is going to be the game. Thank you all for watching. I'm going back to bed and you'll see me in the next one.